So guys, welcome to this video. I'm just a disclaimer. The reason why this video didn't upload yesterday is because I got interrupted by my parents because it was getting really late yesterday and I had to stop recording. So we'll do it again. As I said in the Nokia C1 video, I'll be doing two smartphone comparisons and here they are. So, for starters, here are the two phones. And the phones in question are the Star B79M or B97. I've always called it a B79. I think that's good. This phone is quite well known on the channel. A lot of people got confused when I got there, like, what phone is this? And it's really rare, just like this phone. So I hope you're gonna enjoy this video since these two phones are pretty rare. This rips off a HTC. I'm not totally sure about the model number of that phone it's ripping off, but it's just as good as the phone it's ripping off, if not better. Yes, it's actually, this Chinese ripoff is better in some ways, including battery life, than the original HTC, because oh boy, HTCs had some horrendous battery life. And I'm gonna search up the phone that this is faking, so give me a minute. So I don't know if this is the exact phone it's ripping off, but look at it. It's quite similar, isn't it? I just noticed this phone has the same display, same size, same resolution, same camera, except the video quality is lower, but in favor of that, even though you have lower video recording on this, it does have much better battery life and a bigger battery. Plus you get a replacement one free in the box. I'm not sure if this is the exact phone it's ripping off, because this thing runs Android ice cream sandwich. And the phone that I'm currently looking at does not go up to that. So getting this out of the way, this is just a fake HTC ripoff. It does have fast boot and all that. It does have the fast boot up sequence, you know, when HTC phones had fast boot, so you would just boot up your phone and it will be booted up in like a few seconds. This one does that. This phone, on the other hand, is the Wolfgang AT-AS45IPS, and we'll just call it the AS45IPS because AT is the actual brand from this phone, and we'll get into that later because this phone is Dutch. It's not. I don't know if it's made in China. It probably is, but I have two of these phones. Well, different models. This was their only phone that they ever made that had 4G. This one looks really cool in my opinion, but the touchscreen is broken. At the end, I will try to turn this thing on. And there I dropped it. So, continuing on, let's go to the specs. So, the Wolfgang website is still up, but the Star B79M does not have a specific website. Starting with this, you have a 4.3-inch touchscreen, which is actually a 450p display, which is great, or 540p display. And that is really, really good. That is on par with my LG G2 Mini. And it probably was one of the main selling points of the real deal. And it also was one of the main selling points of this, since this was cheaper than the real deal and still had all the specs. Man, imagine a fake phone being just as good as the original. Well, back in the day, oh man, I miss those days. Back in 2013 when this phone came out, that was possible. So the camera is actually a 5 megapixel unit and on an 8 megapixel one. I'm not sure if they made a version with 5 megapixels, but I think it's a 8 megapixel camera that interpolates to 5 megapixel, which a lot of fake Wish phones do, but they're much worse. They actually interpolate from 13 megapixel to 8, so it's much bigger fake. But it does take 8 megapixel-ish photos, and for a 5 megapixel shooter, it's actually really good. The Wolfgang, on the other hand, camera-wise, by the way, the Wolfgang has a single flash, and the Star has a double flash, and this is not fake, it actually has two flashes, so that's cool, just like a real deal. This thing has an actual 8 megapixel shooter that takes even better pictures, and I have taken pictures with both of these, so I will show them. So yeah, continuing on with the display, this has a 540p display, 4.3 inches, just like I mentioned. A VGA camera. The Wolfgang has the same deal, but I think this one actually has a 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera. Not that it looks any better than a regular VGA. Plus it has a little dimple in the camera. It actually has a little piece of dirt inside of it. So yeah, don't know how that happened. It wasn't there before. Taking a look at the Wolfgang right now. And where are the cameras? Oh, it actually has a 3 megapixel camera on the front. So this phone, yeah, it just takes, I mean, it looks a lot like a VGA camera. I can't really tell that it is 3 megapixel, but it is real. It is 3 megapixel. It's not fake. So yeah, this thing is better for selfies, I guess. Anyways, continuing on with the screen. You got these 3 capacitive buttons, but the LEDs have died on this. So the only LED that will light up is this one, and the back button will light up slightly as well, but the home button is completely fucked. This phone has brighter key lighting, and they all light up. So yeah. Which phone is shuttered down and which phone is not shuttered down? I want to shut both of these down for a minute so you guys can see the startup and shutdown. Sorry, this review is a different kind than I did yesterday. Yesterday I was really specific about stuff. But both of these phones are charged. We'll get into battery life later. The main selling point of this phone is that it has an IPS display. I'm not sure about the B79. It might have an IPS display, but I think it's a TFT. I can't really tell a difference other than this phone gets a little bit brighter. And I asked my dad, and he thinks that this phone looks better. But it's IPS. It's more expensive. It offers better battery life and just better picture quality. While TFT is cheaper to make, eats more battery life, but it is better with text and doing things a little bit sharper. So yeah, pretty nice that the Wolfgang website is still up. So this phone, talking about the OS, this phone came with Android 2.3, but when Star saw that the original device they were ripping off got a ice cream sandwich update, they gave this Chinese device a freaking ice cream sandwich update. Whatever brand is behind this phone is absolutely amazing. I mean, people associate China with bad products, but this is not a bad phone, and I'm actually I actually really love it that I can actually hold this phone since it's so rare. It's so freaking rare. The reason that I got it for like only 15 bucks or something, it will be, I mean, if I had to pay 50 bucks for this thing, it would still be worth it. I mean, it's not in the best shape of all. The rubber has worn off extremely and stuff like that. This happened, that's my fault. But But still, the reason that this thing works fine, and it came with the replacement battery is cool. It didn't came with the case, and yes, you did get a case with this. You actually get a fake HTC box on the on that phone. This was a phone that you could buy at the supermarket, which I'll get into later. So this thing runs the ice cream sandwich update. It does have ice cream sandwich. There's not a lot of bloatware except for your usual notification center, which looks a little bit different. I don't know if that's a skin, but I think it's actually something multiple Chinese phones of that time had. And it came in Chinese when I reset it, so yeah. It does have added wallpapers, so that's cool. It does have more wallpapers than the only boring stock ones. Um, This phone also has a skin on it. It's a pretty barebone skin. It's not too overkill. It's actually some nice touches, and it's not like some overkill stuff like Samsung did with TouchWiz. Especially when Android Ice Cream Sandwich came around, when Samsung really banged on TouchWiz, especially with the Galaxy S2 and the S3. They had like ridiculous skins, but this has stock Android, stock icons, but it does have themes and stuff like that, and some custom wallpapers, and even a custom live wallpaper. So yeah. A little bit more personalizable, in my opinion, on the Wolfgang. CPU wise, this Star B79M runs a really old processor. This is the only phone I've ever seen with this processor. It's a MediaTek MT6575. I've done some research on it, and it's been in release, I think, since 2006. It's a single core running at 1 gigahertz, and this phone has 512 megabytes of RAM. And 473 megabytes is usable of that. Consider it Android 4.0 or Android 2.3. That's not too bad. For Android 2.3, that's good. That's much better than the 256 max some phones had. So Android 2.3, you're gonna get some multitasking out of it, but I think they actually reduced the multitasking on this phone on Android 4.0 to remain some CPU, to remain some sources, so you could do some stuff. So yeah, on Android 4.0, 512 max, it's alright, 473 megabytes. At least it's not Jelly Bean, because oh man, it that's a different story for another day, because I've had a phone that had like 471 megabytes of RAM, and it was absolutely atrocious. So yeah, the CPU is pretty old, but it's actually pretty decent, and I think it's on par with the Snapdragon S1, if not better, since this thing comes rooted out of the box. I put a root booster on it. I put it every goodie on here, and the phone seems to run really good for a single core. Actually, it seems to do better than some Snapdragon S1 phones that I rooted and custom ROM. This runs a little bit more stable than that, so that's pretty cool. The Wolfgang has a, as I think the MT6575 is actually the predecessor from the MT6577, which is inside of here, which is the same CPU that was used in my Alcatel One Touch Star. This CPU is a dual core running at 1 GHz, but it's actually overclocked, I think, to 1.3 gigahertz, but I'm not completely sure. It doesn't say that on the official website, but it's a dual core, and you can really feel that this thing has multiple cores. I mean, the difference between a 1 core and 2 cores is absolutely ridiculous. If you use an Intel Pentium 4 and then have gone to like an Intel Core 2 Duo, the difference is ginormous. So this one has a whole gigabyte of RAM, and that really helps. The reason that this thing doesn't have a update, the reason that this thing is still on stock Jelly Bean is really good. 1 gig of RAM works absolutely amazing on this. You can multitask fluidly, and it really freaking helps with the experience. The only thing that's bottlenecking it is the CPU, but I've had a device before that had 512 megs of RAM. It's the exact same CPU, and it was absolutely atrocious. So the CPU can do the work without being bottlenecked by the RAM, so that's really good that it has a gig of RAM. As I said, 8 megapixel camera and a 3 megapixel front facing camera, which I have my doubts about. It's dual SIM. You know what, let's actually take a look if this phone... Okay, so this phone does not have dual SIM, and the Wolfgang does. 4 gigabytes of ROM in here, 4 gigabytes of ROM in here, and it's not like a really tiny bit of that really tiny chunk is actually accessible to the user. On this phone, it has less storage available than this. This really has like 3.3 gigs available, and I still have 2.1 gig available without an SD card. Although there's an SD card in here, I still have lots of storage left on this, 2.1 gigabytes. So that's cool that finally a Chinese phone that actually has a decent amount of storage left without needing to buy a stupid SD card. This phone has about 600 megabytes free, and this phone does have a much lower amount of storage left than this, even from the factory. So yeah. Taking off the back cover of both of these. So, and now I'll get into the story about this Wolfgang phone. The reason why it's cracked, I did clean this phone beforehand, and the reason why it's cracked is really weird. You probably know these slots here where I store my smartphones. Well, I just janked it out there, and I came downstairs, put it on the charger, and the screen cracked just by pushing on it very slightly. So yeah, it was just starting to break. There's a dimple on the screen right here, so yeah, it's really worn out. These Wolfgang phones are definitely lower quality than these pretty high quality clones for some reason. This is quite a high quality HTC clone. Star has made multiple phones, and they are good. I mean, this is one of the most low end Star phones they have made. They also have made other phones that are similar to what's that brand? There are other Chinese brands that are kind of like this. And as you can see, there are your flash modules, proof of concept. So yeah, taking out the battery. On the Wolfgang, it's a AT battery, the original one. It actually has a model number, and it is how many milliamp hours? 2050. Although that might sound a lot, I'll get into later what this phone has. And that's this one has a problem that basically all Wolfgang phones have. This is a 2000 milliamp hour battery. It seems to rip off the Nokia, and I also have another one, which is a brand new one, which is a replacement one. So yeah, as you can see, the real manufacturer is Ambience Technology, BV, and that BV means that it's made in the Netherlands. Even though it says made in China, it's designed in the Netherlands. That's cool. The Wolfgang Star, on the other hand, just says model B79M. And all that. I think it's actually dual SIM. Yeah, it actually is dual SIM. Okay, not a real standout feature for me. Let me just get this back cover on. I have to be careful here. There we go. Turning both of these suckers on. Yeah, first off the Wolfgang. The boot up animation has been changed. on the Star B79M, it was the original Android boot up logo that you had on like the first Android phone. So yeah, while that is going, I'll take a look at the specs, if my stupid Huawei wants to turn on. Oh, Jesus Christ, I absolutely hate the case on this phone. There you go, that is with fast boots disabled. So yeah, with that newer boot animation, it boots up ridiculously quick. It's a little laggy in the beginning, but that's quite obvious since it has to be booted up itself. Like, if you're in an emergency, this phone would be really good. This one actually has a custom bootloader. That's why it shows its own model number when you turn it on. Funny thing is, it actually says smartphone, mobile phone when you turn this thing on. I mean, when I saw that and told that to my mom, she laughed, and I can get why, because that just makes it look like this is a really unprofessional phone. Just for kicks and giggles, I actually want to put a wolf wallpaper on this. Because my other Wolfgang phone had a wolf wallpaper included, and I just thought it was funny because of the brand. But none of the resolutions fit this. It has to be cut off, you know, to fit the display. And that's really annoying. You have to cut a piece of your wallpaper to fit it. And that makes it look absolutely atrocious. And that's super annoying. So yeah, just swiping around already, you can definitely see that the Wolfgang is not only a little bit smoother, but the Star B79M also doesn't offer any effects, as you can see. It's just a stock Android. Don't worry about the lag. It's actually a pretty decent device. And it does get better. It's actually really good for a such an old processor. But yeah, when you do this, you have application list effect, and these are my personal favorites. So yeah, take a closer look at those key lights from the Star B79M, and on the Wolfgang, they're absolutely dead. As you can see, there's a really slight light on that back key, but even in the darkest space you can get, the home button is completely dead. Like there's no LED at all. So let's turn on my other Wolfgang phone. I'm actually kind of sad this does not work, because this phone actually has a quad-core processor and stuff like that. You know what? I'm gonna put it on the charger, and the reason why is because these phones are getting really rare, and I don't want their batteries to die, since it's freaking impossible to get a new battery. So put my other Wolfgang phone on the charger. I'm cleaning out the charging port, don't worry. Nice touch that they actually put the charging port on the bottom on that phone. Oh wow, it doesn't even turn on yet. Oh man, that poor phone. This phone actually has quite a horrendous charging port, plus the battery life on this is atrocious. So talking about battery life, the Wolfgang, well, it died from 78% to 44% in about half an hour of scrolling through a few pictures in Opera. The Star B79M, on the other hand, you're probably thinking, well, it has an even more atrocious battery life, probably, because it's a Chinese phone. No, not at all. The battery life on this is excellent. It's amazing, almost. The reason it is the original battery is also really good. The only bad thing is the standby time. This phone will die when you put it in a drawer for a few days. The Wolfgang will not, but the Wolfgang has absolutely ridiculously bad battery life. My other Wolfgang phone had this issue too, which is not even turning on as of yet. So yeah, that phone might actually have a dead battery, but it doesn't really matter since the phone has a broken touchscreen anyways. Going to hardware info HW on both phones, and you can actually customize where the little unlock thing is, as you can see. So personalization definitely goes to the Wolfgang. You know what? Let's actually launch this app on both phones at the same time and see how much faster this phone is. So let's press the one tap boost from a cleaning app. So there you go. The RAM is now boosted on both devices. So 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, that went wrong. Nice. 3, 2, 1, go. There you go. Yep, you can definitely see that the Wolfgang was pretty much faster. As you can see, it's actually made by AT. So yeah, taking a look at the Wolfgang first, or the Star first. It just says ALPS B79, and ALPS is basically a name for generic Chinese device. MT6575, Android 4.0.3, 960 by 540, and all this stuff. 4GB Hynix module for the storage. 1 core, Cortex A9 actually. I think it's a Cortex A7. Not completely sure. I don't know if HW is doing that the wrong way. PowerVR SGX 531. Same GPU on both of these. Although this phone obviously runs a little bit smoother due to its more bigger RAM capacity. So, doing it a little bit further here, it just says Alpson B79 on here. The screen is not liking the camera real much. But it does say product H932. I tried googling that and it doesn't come up with anything, I think. And it says brand Android, which is quite funny. But that's just the boot animation that it had originally. So yeah, I can't really find anything about that except that H932. The reason that this has Dutch language is already quite surprising to me. So yeah, RAM, it can't analyze the RAM. 8 megapixel front back camera, 0.3 front facing. So let's do a camera test on this in a minute. Battery, it's obviously really cold in this room, so don't worry. So yeah, and that's basically it for the Star B79M. So we'll do a photo comparison, but first up the Wolfgang with its technical specs. AT-AS45IPS. So you can see Android Photo 101. The resolution of the screen you guys already know. MT6577. 1 gigabyte of unknown RAM and a Samsung module for the storage, which is quite interesting. Charger, lens, autofocus, and stuff like that. Why does the screen look so... Oh, it's just my phone that is dirty. I thought the screen looks really bad on the camera, but that's not it. As you can see, the processor, 2 cores, Cortex A9 32-bit. Revision 0, so it's one of the first units ever. OpenGL-ES 2.0 with that PowerVR GPU that I just showed in the... that I just knew. By the way, this is the same little UI that the Star has, so I have to take that back. This is not a UI used on most Chinese phones. Yeah, that's basically it for the CPU. AT, as you can see, so it's not a generic device, unlike the Star. Jelly Bean, as you can see. Display 60.1 Hz. Cool. RAM 980 megabytes. Camera 8 megapixel. Lots of focus modes, including macro and infinity and picture and full scan and stuff like that. Does this phone have that? Not even sure, to be honest. Camera. Oh yeah, it actually has almost the same stuff. Battery. Wow, it was at like 100% when I started this. Thermals, which you can't see on the Star, it does not support that. 100 degrees. I mean, that's a glitch that I've had on a phone with the same processor, so don't worry. CPU is really cold, but the phone does heat up quite a lot just while internet browsing. The phone does heat up quite a lot, I have to say. But this CPU had that issue just in general. I mean, the other phone, the Alcatel that I had, I mean, that thing got so hot, it literally became a little bit creepy to use it. That thing got like, I don't know, like almost 50 degrees, so the thermals is not too bad. I'm gonna take a picture right now with the Star and the Wolfgang of the same thing, just like I did in the previous video, the good old light. Well, I'm still doing the camera test. I will be taking selfies with it, but I can tell right away that the Wolfgang does take better pictures, like it really does. There's a really annoying dimple on the screen. So yeah, surprising. The results are pretty surprising here. Oh wow, that selfie got really bad. Picture comparison. I'm gonna do the comparison with the light, but I'm also gonna do a comparison with the photos that are already on here, because I did take a lot of pictures with these phones, obviously. Let's put the brightness to the max on both phones, so also on the Star, which it already is at max brightness. And the pictures are pretty decent on both of these, but I will say there's a slight advantage to the Wolfgang, I have to say. It's slightly better. So yeah, take a good look at that. Screen rotation doesn't work. And and take a little look at that. So it does look a little bit better. The what I especially noticed is that it looks a little bit more grainy on this phone. Plus the automatic brightness is fake on this. It does not work, but on this phone it is working. Automatic screen rotation. Yeah, as you can see, it reloads everything when you go back. Does it want to rotate any day? Yep, there we go. So that is the look at that. It looks pretty grainy, even though I'm filming in HD. In real life, it looks pretty grainy. White balance is pretty darn good, to be honest. But it's just a little grainy. And you can definitely tell it's interpolated, but it's not bad. I mean, for a Chinese phone, it's pretty good. I mean, I have seen better, but I've also seen worse, definitely. Even on some non-Chinese phones, like some Nokias actually take worse pictures than this does. So I've enabled the screen rotation. Oh, that's the download. There we go. So yeah, the grain is gone, but it still doesn't look perfect. It's a little too dark in my opinion, but it's actually really good in terms of focusing, and it actually makes a physical noise, so it's a pretty good sensor. Take a look at other pictures. Yeah, it looks really, really good. I'm really good at taking macro pictures. That's why I chose a phone that has a macro lens. But look at that. That looks really astonishing. It looks really, really good. Wow, for an 8 megapixel shooter, that's definitely really good. I really tried my best on the Star B79M just to make it look as bad as possible, as good as possible. It does look good, but it also has the cool focusing effect on the back. I don't know what to call it. The blur. The blur is pretty good on these. So yeah, for a phone that you could buy at the supermarket, this is really impressive. Wow. The display, for example, the IPS display, it's really pushing itself right here. And it does look better than the TFT display on this. But I don't know how much better by a degree. Because both displays just look really good. Because they're the same resolution. And a slight advantage to the Star B79M is that it's a little bit smaller. So you will be seeing pixels less fast. Picture on the Star B79M, it looks good. But zooming in just a little bit will make it look grainy. So that's the main issue. It does look really good. And you can fill the display with it, as you can see. It looks actually really sharp, but it's just that it's a little bit grainy. This picture, which has, wow, a lot of lighting. The display looks really good on this for a Chinese phone. But it's just that this thing just has that extra pop to it because of the IPS display. And this is a TFT. Other than that, here's another picture. Let's hold the display like that. There you go. Okay, that looks really sharp. For a Chinese phone, I'm kind of blown away. For a Chinese phone that was made around the same time as this phone, it looks really freaking good. Yeah, there you go. It's a little grainy, and you can definitely tell that the Wolfgang does take better pictures than this. But other than a little bit of grain in there, it actually looks really, really good. Wow, like the colors are quite amazing for such a old device that has such a old display and stuff like that. Wow, I'm freaking impressed here. So yeah, with a little bit of less lighting, the graininess does not really go away, but you can take good pictures with it. The selfies, on the other hand, this phone takes better selfies than the Wolfgang, not just because of the little dimple that's inside of the camera on the Wolfgang, but I tried avoiding that. But I don't know, it looks really grainy on the Wolfgang, but it looks really clean, in my opinion, on this. Tell me what y'all think about this, but I think the Star definitely takes better pictures. Although I have to mention that it does overexposure a little bit more than this phone. So, picture-wise, it's a close call, but I would say that the Wolfgang takes slightly better pictures. The macro mode is not perfect on this. I have to say that this Star phone does take a little bit better macro pictures. But look at that. That is freaking amazing for such an old device that is not even expensive. I mean, it was like 120 bucks back in the day. So yeah, is it just me? Do I take really good pictures, or is the camera just really good in here? I don't know. It just takes really good pictures. So yeah. Final result on the camera test, it's a little bit grainy on the Star B79M, but it's more than acceptable, and it does take really good color pictures. And with some decent lighting, it doesn't have like overexposure issues or underexposure issues like some more expensive phones have, or some of the cheaper phones have when they have like fixed focus cameras, when they don't have autofocus. So really close call, but I will give it to the Wolfgang slight advantage on the camera, since you can basically tell that the phone is not Chinese because it's not that grainy. But selfies, this phone is a clear winner, the Star B79M. It takes just better selfies. It's much less grainy. And I've taken it in the same exposures and stuff like that, same lighting conditions. So yeah, that is a selfie winner. So if you like selfies, take this phone. If you like pictures, just take this phone. And it is also quite a bit faster, the Wolfgang, but it's definitely not bad. This phone is definitely not bad. So final conclusion, the Star phone is not bad at all. It takes really good pictures for its price. The display is quite awesome, but you can tell that it's a TFT display, mainly with text and stuff like that. But with pictures, I'm quite blown away by the display. It's more than acceptable. It has good pixel density and stuff like that. No issues like that. So yeah, that is really, really good. Don't know about the material that is used in front of here. I don't know if it's plastic or glass, but I think it's actually plastic. But that doesn't matter since I don't want this phone to crack. Both phones do have headphone jacks and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just mainly blown away by the pictures these things take. Wow. It does take slightly better macro pictures, in my opinion, but the Wolfgang does win when it comes to the camera. The camera is amazing on this. For such an old phone, it takes really good pictures. The colors really pop, and it's just really sharp. Display-wise, I will also give it to this phone because it's an IPS display, and IPS is just better. It saves more battery, while it also looks better. But it's really, really close. I don't actually really know what the winner really is, since both displays look really good, but the Wolfgang gets slightly brighter, and the colors look slightly better. Yeah, I can definitely tell. Look at that Play Store logo. Take a look at that Play Store logo. When comparing that, the colors do pop more, so that means that this is a TFT display. But wow, for a TFT display, this is really, really close to IPS level, and it looks really, really good. So you could just say that this is the clear winner, but they're really close to each other, and they're both really good phones. So yeah, display goes to the Wolfgang. It gets a little brighter, the colors do pop, which they don't really that much on the Star, even at max brightness, but that's just because of the technology used in this. Front-facing camera-wise, it's quite disappointing in my opinion on the Wolfgang. It does not take good selfies at all. They're really grainy, and yeah, it just has this annoying dimple in the camera. So yeah, quality-wise, build quality-wise, I will give it to the Star because it has survived amazingly well. The charging port is completely fine on this. It's a really good charging port. But on this, the charging port is ridiculously loose. And it uses that horrendous soft-touch plastic on the back. So it does not rub off, thankfully. When I cleaned this, it did not rub off. On this phone, it did, clearly. But it has survived better, in my opinion, since this phone has a crack in the display. It's super scratched up. This phone barely has any scratches on it. So that may mean that this is actually a glass display. So yeah, build quality wise, I will give it to this phone. So that's it. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I will give it a tie for this time, but it does take better pictures and this phone has better build quality. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video and see y'all later.